Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling the whirlwind that is the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah.
We're zooming in on how Ethereum is evolving and, what the competition looks like in 2024, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
You sent us a mountain of information on this, which is great. Exactly what we need for this kind of fast-moving space.
It certainly is. It's a landscape of, constant innovation and finding the signal through the noise. That can be a real task.
Right.
So that's our goal today, to pull out the most crucial insights for you from all that material.
Precisely. Our mission is to make sense of it all. The big strides Ethereum's making to handle more activity, the exciting new tech popping up.
Yeah, all the new stuff.
And how Ethereum stacks up against the other platforms. We want to give you a clear, engaging overview without getting totally lost in the weeds, the jargon.
Right.
Consider this your fast track to understanding the key shifts, what's actually happening right now.
And just so everyone knows what we looked at, your sources were pretty broad. We had technical reports, blog posts from core devs, research firms.
Industry analyses, too.
Exactly. So we're getting perspectives from, enthusiasts, the builders themselves, financial analysts. It's a good mix.
Yeah, a really well-rounded view. So whether you're prepping for a meeting, just trying to get your head around this complex field, or maybe you're just super curious about where blockchain is going, this deep dive is for you. We're going to synthesize all this and really point out what matters, what the impact might be.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's dive in, starting with the big one, Ethereum. What's the latest on scaling at the base layer, layer 1?
Well, the ongoing evolution of Ethereum, sometimes called Ethereum 2.0 in the past, it's much more than just a name change.
Right.
It's really a fundamental redesign. The core goals are better scalability, handling more transactions, better security, and sustainability, becoming greener.
Okay.
And the key architectural change is this separation. You've got the consensus layer, that's the beacon chain, proof of stake, and then you have the execution layer, which is where all the transactions and smart contracts actually run.
So separating those, that's a big deal. Why is that so fundamental?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
By separating them, Ethereum can create a more robust, more efficient base. And that's what these layer 2 scaling solutions, the rollups and other chains, can build on top of effectively.
Right.
And the shift to proof of stake itself after the merge, that was huge.
Yeah, that got a lot of attention. What were the main upsides there?
The most immediate one, massive energy reduction, over 99%. That tackled a huge environmental criticism head on.
Okay.
Beyond that, proof of stake, it actually strengthens security too. Attackers need to lock up huge amounts of ETH, and if they mess up, that ETH gets slashed.
Gone. Poof.
Pretty much, yeah. Destroyed by the protocol. Plus, it enabled faster block finalization transactions become irreversible quicker. And there's ongoing work on something called single slot finality, SSF.
SSF.
Yeah, aiming to get confirmation times down to just a few seconds.
Wow, okay. That's a difference users would actually feel. But Ethereum's also heavily into layer 2 scaling, right? Why do both? Why not just make layer 1 faster?
That's a really key point. The core devs realized that trying to massively scale just the base layer, well, it could bring big risks. You might compromise decentralization or security.
The trilemma.
Exactly. So they went for this layered scaling strategy. It's kind of modular. Layer 1 handles the essentials: security, consensus, finality, and, importantly, data availability. A place to put the data.
Right.
Then layer 2 handles the bulk of the actual transaction processing off the main chain.
Okay, I see. Distribute the load, keep the core secure. Which brings us to Proto-Danksharding, EIP 4844. That went live March 2024, right? What is it exactly?
Proto-Danksharding. Yeah, part of the Dankin upgrade. It was a really clever step. It introduced a new transaction type carrying these things called blobs.
Blobs?
Blobs of data, yeah.
No.
They're attached to blocks, but they're separate from the old call data space.
Okay.
And the key thing is, these blobs provide a much, much cheaper and temporary space specifically for layer 2 rollups to post their big batches of transaction data onto Ethereum.
So blobs are like temporary, cheap storage just for L2s, and call data is for everything else, like a discount lane on the highway.
Perfect analogy, a dedicated discount lane. And because this blob data, it isn't directly read by the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine that runs contract.
Right.
And it gets automatically deleted after about 18 days. It doesn't bloat the main chain permanently. It's a neat solution, thanks to researchers like Proto-Lambda and Dan Gradfeist, hence Danksharding.
And the cost savings, you said significant. How significant?
Well, CoinShares analysis suggested it cut the cost for L2s posting data by up to 98%.
98%? Wow.
Nah, massive savings. And for users, that translates directly into way lower fees on rollups like Arbitrum, Optimism, we're talking potential for L2 fees down in the cents range.
Okay, that's a genuine game changer. Makes using dApps for everyday stuff actually feasible, maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
EIP 4844 created this separate market just for rollup data. It drives down those fees, and it frees up space on the main chain, letting rollups handle even more transactions.
And Proto-Danksharding is just step one towards full Danksharding. What's the end game there?
That's right. Full Danksharding is the long-term vision for, well, massive scale, potentially over 100,000 transactions per second across L1 and L2 combined.
Whoa.
The main difference is how they ensure data availability. Instead of splitting execution, Danksharding uses data shards. All validators will use something called data availability sampling, DAS. Yeah, to check that the data in those blobs is actually available without needing to download everything.
So it's a smarter way to verify data is there without everyone needing the whole thing. More efficient.
Precisely. But getting to full Danksharding, that needs more upgrades. Things like proposer-builder separation, PBS, getting that fully baked into the protocol. And the full DAX mechanisms, that's still some years away. But Proto-Danksharding was crucial, even with the limited blobs now. It hugely increased data space for rollups. And that space will grow a lot more with full Danksharding.
So looking at 24-25, the big impact is these lower L2 fees, better user experience, and Ethereum's core security remains strong.
Exactly. You've got around 500,000 validators, huge decentralization, and proof of stake with slashing is a serious deterrent. Attackers risk billions.
Right.
And other improvements are coming too. Vertical trees, that's part of the Verge roadmap phase. They'll help with stateless clients, make it easier to run nodes.
Less data needed.
Right. And for MEV maximal extractable value, that's the Scourge phase. They're looking at enshrining PBS, maybe block auctions, to fight centralization risks there.
It really sounds like Ethereum's cementing itself as this secure base layer built for layer 2s to scale on top of. Okay, let's jump into layer 2 then. Rollups are the main game. What's their job?
Layer 2s have really become the main stage for scaling Ethereum now. They handle way more transactions, much cheaper, but without sacrificing Ethereum security, because they use Ethereum for settlement.
So the action happens elsewhere, but Ethereum guarantees the result and security.
Precisely. And rollups are the leading tech here. The basic idea: execute transactions off-chain, on a separate layer 2 chain, but post a summary back to Ethereum.
A summary? Like what?
Either the raw transaction data itself, or increasingly a cryptographic proof showing the off-chain work was valid. Because it's anchored to Ethereum, it inherits Ethereum security.
Okay.
Users interact with the faster, cheaper L2, but rely on Ethereum for final proof verification or dispute resolution.
And the two main types are optimistic and ZK rollups. What's the core difference?
Yeah, they differ fundamentally in how they prove the off-chain work was correct. Let's start with optimistic rollups. Think Arbitrum, optimism.
Okay.
Their core idea is, well, optimism. They assume transactions processed on L2 are valid by default.
Innocent until proven guilty. Or trust but verify.
Innocent until proven guilty is a great way to put it. When they post a batch of transactions and the new L2 state back to Ethereum, there's no initial proof.
Right.
Instead, it kicks off a challenge period, often about 7 days. During this window, anyone watching can submit a fraud proof if they think something's wrong.
And if they find fraud, if someone submits a valid proof,
then the whole batch gets reverted, and the bad actor who submitted it gets penalized. But if no one challenges it within the week or so,
then it's considered final.
Exactly. It's accepted by Ethereum. This design is simpler, no complex proofs needed for every batch. That meant faster development, full EVM compatibility early on.
Ah, that's why they took off first around 2021, 22. Easy for developers to move existing apps.
Precisely. Migrating Solidity contracts was pretty straightforward.
Right.
But there's a trade-off.
The withdrawal delay, right. Taking funds back to L1 takes time.
That's the main one. Because of that challenge period, withdrawing back to Ethereum Layer 1 usually takes about a week. Now, there are workarounds.
Liquidity bridges.
Yeah, third-party services that give you the funds instantly on L1 for a fee, basically. But the underlying tech has that delay, and security relies on watchers, honest folks monitoring for fraud.
And who are the big players in optimistic rollups now?
Arbitrum 1 and Optimism are very mature, widely used. Arbitrum even launched its ARB token, moved to DAO governance.
Decentralizing?
Right. Optimism is pushing their superchain idea, a network of L2s built with their open source OP stack. We're seeing that with Coinbase's Base Zora network.
Built on the OP stack. Okay. So that's optimistic. How do ZK rollups work differently?
ZK rollups take the opposite approach. No optimism needed. They generate a cryptographic proof of validity for every single batch before posting results to Ethereum.
A proof every time?
Every time. ZK rollups like ZK Sync, Era, Starknet, Polygon ZK EVM, Linea, Scroll. They process transactions off-chain, then use complex crypto to create a validity proof, often a snark or stark.
Snark or Snark. Okay.
This proof is like a mathematical certificate, guaranteeing all transactions in the batch were executed correctly by the rules.
So like mathematical certainty, no fraud possible if the proof checks out.
Exactly. This small proof, plus minimal state info, goes to Ethereum. The ZK rollups L1 contract verifies it very efficiently. If the proof is valid, it's mathematically impossible for the batch to be fraudulent.
Okay.
And because you have that guarantee, no need for a long challenge period. Once the proof's verified on L1, which can be minutes, even seconds, the results are final.
That sounds way better. Faster finality, stronger security. What was the holdup? Why were they slower to arrive?
The big hurdles were computational cost and engineering complexity. Generating those proofs, especially for something as complex as the EVM, it was really hard for a long time.
Right. Making it compatible with existing Ethereum contracts was tough.
Very tough.
Yeah.
Often needed new languages or compromises, but we've seen huge progress. Better algorithms, PLO-NK, recursive snarks, plus hardware acceleration. It's changed the game.
And Vitalik Buterin thinks ZK is the future, right?
He said he believes ZK rollups will likely prevail long-term. Yeah, because of those security and efficiency benefits as the tech matures.
And we have seen a bunch launch recently.
Absolutely. 2023 and 2024 were huge for ZK. Polygon launched ZK EVM, now out of beta, aiming for high EVM compatibility. ZK Sync Era launched with great Solidity support. Scroll launched their mainnet October 23, also focused on EVM equivalents. Starknet uses Starks, different tech, no trusted setup needed, uses their own language, Cairo. They're evolving fast too.
So they're catching up fast, even if proof generation still needs optimization.
Tremendous progress. They're rapidly closing the gap on usability and developer experience.
Okay, both sound valuable. Quick comparison. Key differences side by side.
Sure. Validity proof, optimistic, none by default, relies on fraud proofs. ZK validity proof with every batch.
Okay.
Finality withdrawals, optimistic delayed by challenge period. ZK fast finality once proof is verified on L1.
Right.
Computation, optimistic cheaper off-chain, needs monitors. ZK intensive proof generation, but efficient L1 verification.
Got it.
EVM compatibility, optimistic high from the start. ZK needed lots of innovation, but ZK EVMs are getting very close now.
And maturity.
Optimistic active since 2021-22, big ecosystems. ZK first major deployments, 2023-24, growing fast, still building out infra.
That helps clarify things. It really feels like Ethereum is becoming this layered system.
Exactly. A network of networks. L1 is the secure settlement and data hub. L2s offer the cheap, fast transactions.
Optimistic still leading in volume, but ZK growing fast.
Generally, yeah. Arbitrum often does more daily transactions than Ethereum L1, but ZK is gaining serious ground, and maybe they'll converge eventually. Optimism has talked about adding validity proofs.
Interesting. Now, you also mentioned modular chains and data availability layers. How do they fit in?
Right. Modularity is another huge trend. Traditional or monolithic chains do everything. Execution, consensus, data storage, settlement, all on one layer.
Can create bottlenecks.
Exactly. Modular designs split these jobs. Ethereum's already doing this, separating execution and consensus, planning data shards.
Okay.
And this has opened the door for specialized external layers, like data availability layers.
DA layers. What's their specific job?
Their main job is just securely storing transaction data and making sure it's available for verification. They don't execute the transactions themselves. Think Celestia or Eigendo from EigenLayer.
Right.
They let rollups or other chains post their data off Ethereum, potentially increasing throughput and cutting costs even more.
Let's dig into Celestia and Eigenda. What makes Celestia unique?
Celestia was the first public chain focused purely on DA and consensus. No built-in execution. It's a platform for others to launch their own execution chains, like sovereign rollups.
And they use Celestia just for ordering blocks and data availability.
Exactly. Celestia uses data availability sampling DAS. Nodes just download small random samples of the data. If enough nodes can do that successfully, you can be statistically sure the full data is available.
Clever. So chains using Celestia don't need their own full validator set for data security.
Right. They leverage Celestia's shared security. Celestia launched mainnet beta October 23 with their TIA token. Lots of interest from modular projects. And DAS means running a Celestia node might stay relatively cheap, even with many rollups using it.
So Celestia is like a public data highway.
Good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Now, EigenLayer and EigenAir are different. EigenLayer is built on Ethereum. It lets ETH stakers restake.
Restate.
Yeah, reuse their staked ETH to secure other modular services, oracles, computation networks, or DA layers like Eigenday. They opt in their staked ETH via eigenlayer contracts, earn extra rewards.
Okay.
So Agenda is a DA layer secured by these Ethereum restakers. Similar goal to Celestia store rollup data, but it leverages Ethereum's economic security. If restakers misbehave on Agenda, their ETH gets slashed.
Using Ethereum's existing security blanket?
Right. Eigenlayer started rolling out in 2023, gained huge traction, over 4 million ETH restaked by April 24, loads of new validators opting in, big interest.
But potential risks, too, if an eigenlayer module fails.
That's the concern.
Yeah.
It could lead to slashing of restaked ETH, creating systemic risk. So lots of research, testing is crucial, it's powerful, but introduces new dependencies.
So it's a trade-off, leverage Ethereum security versus new potential failure points. The whole L2 and modular space sounds incredibly diverse now.
Absolutely. 2024, 2025. Mature, optimistic rollups, fast-growing ZK rollups, plus these modular chains and DA layers. Ethereum is becoming the base settlement data layer for this whole interconnected network.
And Proto-Danksharding made L2s way cheaper?
Yeah, fees down to like 0.01 cents on some. All these things combined, they're bringing that vision of scaling Ethereum securely to hundreds of thousands of TPS, much closer to reality this decade.
Amazing progress. Now, Ethereum's dominant, but not alone. Let's talk competitors. Solana, Avalanche, Sui, Aptos. How do they tackle the trilemma? Monolithic versus modular.
Right. Ethereum leads in dApps developers, but yeah, their L1s have different designs. Comparing them often comes down to the blockchain trilemma: security, decentralization, scalability. How do they balance those? Monolithic versus modular. Their advances definitely challenge Ethereum in places, but also offer lessons, potential integrations.
Let's start with Solana, known for speed, right? What's their secret?
Solana is all about extreme performance, low latency. They use a monolithic design, execution, consensus, data, all on one layer. They've prioritized scalability, sometimes accepting trade-offs on decentralization compared to Ethereum.
Okay.
Key innovations: proof of history, POH, like a decentralized clock stamping transactions before consensus, speeds things up a lot.
Pre-ordering.
Yeah. And C-level, their parallel execution engine. Transactions declare upfront which accounts they'll touch, so non-conflicting ones can run in parallel.
Clever.
Combine that with optimizing for modern high-end hardware. They hit theoretical peaks around 50K TPS. Typical finality is super fast, 0.4, 0.6 seconds per block. Users often see confirmations in like 5 seconds.
Incredible speeds compared to L1 Ethereum, but the trade-off. I've heard about downsides.
Yeah, the high hardware requirements mean fewer entities can run validators, raising decentralization concerns. They've also had some network outages in the past under extreme load or due to bugs.
Stability issues.
They had them, yeah. Also, the learning curve for developers is steeper Rust, the account model. It's different from Solidity EVM.
Yeah.
But stability improved a lot in 2023. And they're working on client diversity with FireDancer.
FireDancer.
A new validator client from Jump Crypto, built in C++ food. Lab tests showed potential for huge TPS, like 600K. Aims to boost performance and resilience.
So Solana's sticking with the monolithic approach, betting on hardware and software optimization.
Exactly. No sharding, not relying on L2s within their own system. They believe vertical scaling is the way. It makes them strong for apps needing raw speed, low latency, high-frequency trading, complex games.
Right.
The big question is, can they maintain enough decentralization and security at global scale? Their success shows the upside of scale first: high TPS, low fees, smooth UX. But also the challenges: past outages, hardware costs, smaller dev pool.
So competitor or complement to Ethereum?
Both, really. It's a direct competitor for DeFi projects valuing pure speed, or consumer apps needing a slick experience. But it's also complementary. It pushes performance boundaries, maybe inspires others.
And bridges exist.
Yeah, bridges like Wormhole allow asset movement. Projects like Neon EVM are trying to run EVM contracts on Solana. It's increasingly multi-chain. Solana is the scalable monolith, scale first, decentralized later. Their evolution in 24-25 is key.
Insightful. Okay, Avalanche. Different approach again.
Yeah, Avalanche is more of a hybrid. Aims for fast finality, EVM compatibility on its C-chain, and a customizable multi-chain design via subnets.
Subnets.
Right. It's a network of blockchains. The primary network has the X-chain assets, P-chain, subnet coordination, and C-chain. C-chain is EVM compatible, where most DiffNFT stuff happens. Uses Solidity Ethereum tools, but Avalanche's faster consensus.
And their consensus is different. What's special there?
They use Avalanche consensus, or Snowman, for linear chains like C-chain. Achieves near instant finality, like 1-2 seconds. Uses repeated random sampling, probabilistic confirmation. Validators agree super quickly.
1 to 2 seconds.
Yeah, great for payments, interactive apps. The C-chain itself handles maybe 4,500, 6,000 TPS in tests, hundreds of thousands daily in practice.
But the real innovation is subnets. How do they work?
Subnets are the key differentiator. Anyone can launch their own custom blockchain. Define your own validators, who must also validate the mainnet, custom rules. Use EVM or Cosmos SDK or something custom. Have your own gas token. Make it permission for enterprise use. It enables horizontal scaling. Instead of one chain for everything, you have many specialized parallel chains.
Right.
They talk to each other using Avalanche warp messaging, AWM, launched in 2023. And all subnets get some security from the primary network because validators have to stake AVEX.
Sounds powerful for specific apps. Any examples?
Yeah, we've seen game-specific subnets like DeFi Kingdoms, DX subnets like Dexalot, sometimes doing more transactions than the C-chain, shows the potential for offloading activity.
And they're making it easier to launch them.
Yeah, the planned Avalanche 9000 Etna upgrade in 2024 aims to simplify subnet creation. Fits their goal to tokenize all the world's assets, cater to enterprise.
So technically, how does Avalanche stack up against Ethereum? Strengths, weaknesses?
Strengths. EVM compatibility on C-chain attracts devs. Faster L1 performance there. Subnets offer unique modularity, isolating apps. It competes with Ethereum for Solidity apps needing more speed.
But also complements.
Yeah, bridges allow asset movement. Users can leverage Avalanche's speed low fees. That 2's finality is great for DeFi. Subnets can handle use cases that might be L2s on Ethereum.
Yeah, insides.
Smaller community network effect than Ethereum. Security model is robust, but less battle-tested than Ethereum's. But interoperability potential is huge bridges, maybe connecting Avalanche subnets and Ethereum L2s directly someday. Avalanche seems keen on collaboration.
So Avalanche offers this scalable multi-chain model, keeping EVM compatibility. Okay, let's shift to Sui and Aptos, the newer kids on the block.
Right. Sui and Aptos are younger L1s, emphasizing parallel execution, contract security via the Move language, and developer experience.
Yeah.
Both came out of Facebook's Libre project.
Using the Move language?
Both use Move, yeah. Aptos launched October 22, Sui May 23. Promised high performance, better dev tools. They share some core features.
Like Move. What's special about it?
Move is resource-oriented, designed for better security, auditability than Solidity. Prevents things like re-entrancy bugs by default. It's Rust-based, has concepts like non-duplicable resources.
Sounds safer.
Potentially, yeah. Both Aptos and Sui see it as a more secure, intuitive alternative. Great for NFTs, games because of how it handles assets natively.
And parallel execution. Big difference from EVMs, one thing at a time.
Exactly. Aptos uses block STM optimistic parallel execution. Assumes no conflict, runs in parallel. If conflict detected, re-executes sequentially.
Okay.
Sui is more deterministic. Uses Move's object model to classify transactions. If they touch independent objects, they run in parallel. No re-execution needed.
More predictable.
Yeah. Sui uses a DAG structure for ordering these independent transactions. Single object transactions can sometimes confirm super fast 0.5's average finality without full global consensus.
Wow, and Aptos.
Aptos uses Aptos BFT v4, derived from hot stuff. Also gets sub-second finality, ideally. Both report impressive test results. Aptos claimed 13K sustained TPS in October 24. Sui shows great parallel processing, especially for NFT gaming stuff.
Sub-second finality is amazing. How do they handle data storage and availability? Still monolithic.
Yeah, both are monolithic L1s, store data on-chain. Aptos is more linear blocks. Sui uses that DAG for some transactions. No sharding yet. Focuses on vertical scaling, parallel processing within nodes.
Fewer validators initially.
Right, launched with maybe 100 each. Allows fast coordination but implies more centralization than Ethereum initially. Expected to grow validator sets over time.
And security, beyond the Move language.
Both use Byzantine fault-tolerant, BFT consensus, resilient against up to 13 malicious validators. Aptos uses rotating leaders. Sui has concurrent leaders, strong foundation. But they're young, less battle-tested than Ethereum. Time will tell.
You mentioned differences between Sui and Aptos despite shared origins. Key distinctions.
Yeah, Sui is really optimized for independent objects like NFTs, in-game items. That super fast finality for single object transactions makes it great for games needing quick state updates.
Right.
Aptos is maybe more traditional blockchain structure, but with optimistic parallel execution for broader use cases, including DeFi. Arguably a simpler model conceptually for some devs. Move implementations also differ slightly in how resource management is handled.
So are they a threat to Ethereum?
Technically, in raw TPS and finality, they're arguably state-of-the-art L1s in 2025. Sub-second finality is something Ethereum L1 isn't aiming for short-term. So yeah, they can attract apps needing massive throughput now without waiting for L2s to mature fully.
Clean slate design, less congestion potential.
That's the appeal. They've got big VC backing, lots of interest, but they lack Ethereum's mature ecosystem. Liquidity, network effects, dev tools, integrations. Right. It takes time to build that.
So maybe coexistence. Niches.
Very possible. Subi for gaming social, Aptos for diffusional use. Plus, interoperability is key. Bridges, maybe move VMs on Ethereum. They can become specialized chains complementing Ethereum, not killers. And their innovations might inspire Ethereum's evolution too.
Definitely ones to watch. You also mentioned Polkadot and Cosmos briefly. They're angles.
Polkadot is modular from the start. Central relay chain for security, connected parachains for execution. Focuses on interoperability between parachains, parallel runtimes. Niche appeal for projects wanting sovereignty with shared security.
And Cosmos.
Cosmos is an ecosystem of sovereign chains linked by the IBC protocol. Very modular. Build your own chain with Cosmos SDK, connect via IBC. Ethereum actually took inspiration from Cosmos for things like data availability ideas.
Right.
It doesn't directly compete for Ethereum contracts, but Cosmos chains like Kronos, Osmosis have lots of DefNFT activity. Complementary via bridges, hybrid projects like Evmos bringing EVM to Cosmos.
And older L1s like Cardano, Algorand, still relevant.
Yeah, Cardano, EUTXO model, Hydra L2, Algorand, PurePS, Tron, stablecoin transfers, Tezos, near dynamic sharding, all have unique tech communities. They compete, but Ethereum's dominance in general smart contracts, liquidity community is still massive.
Great overview. So summing up the competitors, threat or complement?
Ethereum's advantages are huge. Devs, DeFi, liquidity. But Solana pushes performance limits. Avalanche offers EVM plus fast finality plus subnets. Aptos bring new ideas on parallelism, languages.
But it's moving towards multi-chain.
Increasingly, yes.
Yes.
Better bridges, interop protocols, IBC CCIP layer 0 that suggests coexistence. Ethereum likely remains central, the secure settlement hub. Other L1s become specialized environments linked to Ethereum. Assets move seamlessly between them.
Fascinating. Okay, let's zoom back to recent developments, 2024, 2025. Key technical updates. What happened on Ethereum L1?
Big one was the Denkin upgrade, March 2024. Implemented EIP 4844, Proto-Danksharding.
Right, the blobs.
Yeah, immediate impact. L2 costs dropped up to 98%. Huge surge in rollup activity. Now devs are discussing the next upgrade, Prog or Electra.
What's on the table?
Maybe Verkle trees for stateless clients, maybe Enshrine PBS, maybe smaller stuff by end of 24. Lots of testing happening. And remember, the KZG ceremony finished early 23, secured the EIP 48844 parameters.
Community effort.
Huge one. Looking at 2025, focus is likely on remaining roadmap items. Testing data availability sampling, PBS prototypes. Ethereum L1 is balancing evolution and stability.
And the L2 ecosystem itself. Deployments, upgrades.
2023 was year of the rollups. 2024 consolidated that. ZK rollups at mainnet, ZK Sync era, Polygon ZK EVM had a beta, Linea, Scroll. Starknet kept upgrading.
Optimistic rollups too.
Big progress. Optimism's Bedrock upgrade cut costs, improved Ethereum compatibility, enabled the superchain vision. Arbitrum Stylus upgrade in SEP24 was huge. Allows contracts in Rust, C++ compiled to WSM alongside EVM. Opens Arbitrum to way more devs. They also launched Arbitrum Orbit for launching L3s.
And big players launching L2s.
Coinbase's base using OP Stack. Interop between L2s improved too. Hop, Connext, Synapse for asset transfers. Ethereum Foundation exploring trustless bridging standards.
Withdrawal times improving.
Yeah, optimistic rollup withdrawal delays reduced with faster fraud proofs like Canon. Some specialized L2s like Aztec, Privacy ZK, paused for redesigns too. Overall, L2s are handling massive volume now, often more than L1.
Validates the strategy. What about those newer architectures, modularity?
Definitely. Celestia mainnet launched Oct23 really kicked off the modular era visibly. Sovereign rollup projects are building on it.
Using Celestia for DA?
Right. Eigenlayer enabled restaking, announced initial modules like Eigendentity decentralized oracles. This whole security as a service idea is growing Babylon using Bitcoin security.
Interesting.
App-specific chain frameworks took off. Polygon CDK, Optimism's OP stack, makes launching custom L2 sidechains way easier, fuels that interconnected ecosystem growth.
And with all these chains, interoperability, bridges are crucial. Secure bridges.
Absolutely critical. Bridge security was a huge worry after past hacks. 2024 saw real efforts to harden them. Chainlink CCIP launched publicly, used by Swift even.
Wow.
Layer 0 expanded its reach. Cosmos IBC adoption grew. Polygon Avail integrated it. Proof of concepts linking IBC to Ethereum L2s. Boundaries blurring, but secure cross-chain finality is still a big challenge.
Finally, security fundamentals, audits. best practices.
Encouragingly, 2024 was relatively quiet for catastrophic L1, L2 protocol exploits. Suggest maturity, better practices, multiple audits, huge bug bounties are standard now.
Right.
The Viper compiler bug in 23 was a wake-up call, though. Increased focus on language diversity, formal verification. Also growing awareness of centralization risks, like in liquid staking, Lido.
Solutions being explored.
Yeah, distributed staking tech. Ethereum added encapsulated withdrawal credentials to help decentralize institutional staking. L2 security, validity fraud proofs, is holding up, but newer tech is still being battle-tested. Overall, a more proactive security culture.
Amazing pace. Okay, briefly, how's this translating to real-world adoption and the regulatory picture?
Yeah, the tech progress is enabling more use. By late 2024, L2 daily transactions consistently beat L1. Activity spreading across L1s too. Stablecoins used globally on multiple chains.
Institutions.
Visa, MasterCard testing settlements on Ethereum, Solana, early days for institutional adoption, but Avalanche subnets, Polkadot permissions make it more viable. Could see major user growth in 25-26. Maybe users won't even know the chain they're on.
Smart wallets abstraction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But regulation is key. EU's MiCA regulation, effective 24-25, brings clarity there, could boost adoption.
US is different.
U.S. SEC actions in 23 classifying some competitor tokens as securities created uncertainty, might indirectly help ETH status, but Ethereum isn't immune, remember Tornado Cash?
Yeah.
On-chain identity compliance tools are also growing.
So coexistence is the likely future, not winner-take-all.
Seems most likely. A multi-chain equilibrium. Ethereum as the neutral settlement layer for high-value L2 anchor. Others find niches. Solana for high frequency, Cosmos Polkadot for sovereign interop, Aptos for mass Web3 apps.
Bitcoin as store of value.
Connected via bridges too. Better bridges make the underlying chain less visible to users. For Ethereum, it means keep improving the base layer. Be the central hub.
Paints a clear picture. Final thoughts on the overall state, looking ahead.
The ecosystem in 2024-2025 is just rapid technical evolution, scaling, connecting platforms, Ethereum's modular shift, Proto-Danksharding's impact enabling L2s. It's huge.
L2s delivering low fees, high throughput on Ethereum security.
Exactly. While new L1s push performance boundaries with different trade-offs, scalability is becoming less of a bottleneck. Focus shifts to usability, interoperability, real-world apps.
Collaboration may be more important than competition.
Could be. It's an exciting time. Years of research deploying live. Potential for a more accessible, decentralized global infrastructure is really unfolding.
Fantastic overview. We covered so much Ethereum scaling, the L2 landscape, optimistic versus ZK, modularity, DA layers, competitors like Solana, Avalanche, Sui, Aptos.
Yeah, Ethereum's modular transition, Proto-Danksharding's impact, the diversity of L2s, the rise of modularity in DA layers like Celestia and Eigenday, plus the unique designs of competitors and how it's all becoming more interconnected.
Absolutely. So, for you listening, here's a final thought. With all these huge advances in Ethereum scaling and competitor capabilities, what do you think is the biggest remaining hurdle for mainstream adoption? Is it still technical? Is it regulation needing clarity? Or maybe something else entirely user experience, killer apps for the average person?
Good question.
We really encourage you to dig deeper into anything that caught your interest today. Official sites, research papers, community forums, the info is out there. We hope this deep dive gave you some valuable clarity and a solid footing in this super dynamic field.